Paige is a thought leader and speaker and content creator who connects with millions each month about the realities of modern motherhood, marriage, and careers. Now, as a working mother of four, yes, that is four, she is known for making invisible labour of women visible by bringing awareness to the mental load, gender inequality, and systemic barriers that parents face. She's also an advocate for affordable childcare, paid leave, and workplace policies to support caregivers as a way to help women not just to achieve equality at home, but also in the workplace. Now, she's been featured on The Today Show and Good Morning America, so we are very honoured to have you here at the 5 Hour Club to answer all of your questions about the mental load and how to talk to our partners about it. So, Paige, we've already had lots of questions come in, but if anybody does have another question that they want to ask Paige live, please do so, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. So, first of all, Paige, to kick things off, can you tell us what is the mental load?
Sure. So I think there's different ways to describe it. Some of them feel maybe more clinical than others, but the way that I like to describe it is it's a never-ending to-do list in your brain of everything you need to know, do, and remember. And this could be for your work life, your home life, your kids, all the things, right? So it's knowing that tomorrow is Spirit Day at school. It's remembering that you forgot to buy ketchup at the store. It's knowing that your kid isn't eating mozzarella cheese anymore and they only like cheddar. It's all the things that you have in your brain that is this running to-do list. And the trickiest part about this to-do list is that it tends to only get longer, not shorter. And so say you buy the ketchup. When you do buy the ketchup, you remember that you're actually out of snacks. And so you add those to the list. And so you're just constantly adding things to this list. You're getting inundated with emails of things you need to do and remember. And so it's all of that. And it's made up of different pieces. So it's made up of cognitive labor. So that kind of work we're talking about, emotional labor. So if you think about managing conflict, managing your dynamic with your mom and your sister, managing your relationship with your partner, with your toddler, all of that emotional labor is also the mental load. It's being the person who thinks, if we go to this party, I know these two people are probably going to have some conflict. And so thinking ahead, maybe we seat them separately from each other. And that's the mental load, right? So I think oftentimes it's packaged as this thing that women talk about as it relates to motherhood. But the mental load exists in so many different arenas, at work, at home, in friendships, in our family lives. And it's made up of many different pieces, which is why I think it's so hard to explain.
Yeah, I mean, that is a brilliant explanation because I think it is right. I think it's being able to articulate what that is. So then you've articulated that really well to us. How would you then articulate that to your partner and what that means?
Yeah. So I think it depends, right? Obviously, we all come at this with different situations. There's a lot of nuance to this conversation, which can make it tricky to navigate. But if you are coming to your partner and you want to have a conversation about the mental load, I think first and foremost, don't have it in the moment, right? If your partner forgot to empty the diaper bag or restock the diaper bag, if they dropped the ball on something, for example, and you're feeling really frustrated, if they say something like, we really need to sign the kid up for soccer, and they mean you, and you're like, okay, this is really getting to me, that's usually not the time to talk about the mental load because emotions are really high and we're not coming into it with intention or a plan to change the dynamic. We're calling it out maybe and we're voicing our frustration. I'm not saying that's not valid, but if we're actually looking to have a productive conversation that results in meaningful change, I really do think couples need to sit down and have a conversation very intentionally. So saying today on Monday, hey, I want us to find some time this weekend for an hour or two to sit down and have a talk because I'm feeling like our home's not operating effectively, or I'm feeling really burnt out and I'm wondering if we can tackle this different. It depends obviously on what's going on, and setting that up, right? And saying, this is what I want to do. Then I think the first thing I suggest people do is get on the same page about what the goal of the conversation is, right? So you might have a goal, your partner might have a goal, and then you guys should have a goal together. So if my goal was, I feel like things are unfair and I'm doing too much, I might come to my partner and say, for me, at the end of this, what I would like to achieve is some form of equity where I don't feel like I'm taking on too much of the household responsibility because it's resulting in me feeling really burnt out and resentful towards you. I want us to be happy and thriving. I want to enjoy date night with you and not be frustrated with you. And so my goal is to get to that point where we don't have that frustration and resentment, and I can actually enjoy spending time with you, right? As together as a team, you might have a different goal. Your partner's goal might be, I remember my husband saying to me, like, I just want us to be happy. And I feel like we're not happy. And I was like, yeah, no, we're not. Like, we're definitely not
Yeah.
happy. And so I think those are the first two things I recommend: being really intentional about the conversation, but setting goals together and viewing it as the two of you against the problem and not against each other, right? There's a lot going on. The mental load is heavy. There's a never ending to-do list. How do you guys tackle that together, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm doing more, you're not doing enough? That all might be true. It's just probably not going to get us where we want to go.
Okay, that's right. So being very intentional about it and coming together with those two goals, that makes a lot of sense. But what if in that conversation, and this is something I've had before, where the partner says, but I have a mental load too.
Yeah.
I deal with the finances and I have to deal with the construction work outside. You know, I have these things. This is my mental load. You know, we're both in this. I feel you, but, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I just can't deal with your stuff. Like, what do you do then?
So this is kind of the next step, which is you're going to put a plan in place and you're actually going to do things to address this. So first and foremost, your partner does have mental load. Like, I know that's frustrating to hear for a lot of women in particular, which is like, sure, he does, right? Like, yeah, how hard is it to mow the lawn or to pay the bills? And transparently, most women are paying the bills, right? But that is the thing we hear from men: providing, finances, manual labor, all of these things. They do have a mental load. Everybody does. I think the problem is a lot of what women tend to do is invisible, unpaid labor, right? So something like, for example, mowing the lawn, that is something that you see, right? Like, you see somebody doing that. Typically, you see the grass getting shorter, all of those things. Being the person to field every single school email and keep track of spirit days, nobody sees that. Right? They don't see you doing that work. That's invisible. Nobody saw that. Nobody saw you set reminders to buy your mother-in-law a birthday gift, right? Nobody's seeing you keeping track of all this work. This is all invisible. They might not even see you doing the laundry, right? Your partner might go to work, for example. Say you work from home, they go to the office. You put the laundry in, you wash, you fold, you put it away. Your partner comes home, they saw nothing. They saw nothing. And so that, I think, is actually the biggest problem, which is so much of the work that women do is invisible and unpaid. And when things are unpaid in our society, which is mostly capitalistic, we equate it as being less valuable, right? It's not important because you're not getting paid for that work. And so my suggestion is to make that invisible work visible. So you can do that by doing something like Fair Play, which is a game and a book. So Eve Rodsky created this game where you have a deck of cards with all the tasks on it, and you can deal those cards out. I did a spreadsheet because I like spreadsheets. So we wrote every single thing down, put our names next to it. And what tends to happen in that scenario is it makes it pretty objective, right? It's no longer subjective. I'm doing more. No, I'm doing more. It's okay. Let's look at all the things that are happening in our house, every nitty gritty little thing, and see if it feels equitable. And if it doesn't, it's pretty obvious. When my husband and I did it, he was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm not nearly doing as much as you are. And he knew that, but I don't think he knew how wide the gap was and how much I'd taken on since we became parents in particular. Because I think a lot of couples are like maybe slightly tipped to women's side, and then they have kids and the scales really tip. And that is, for lack of a better term, the tipping point, right? Like that is when it breaks and when the frustration and resentment comes. So making that invisible labor as visible as possible and creating accountabilities around it to make it as objective as possible is also really helpful.
It's really good to know. So that, because I talk about this a lot too, about that invisibility of things that you do. So if you make it more visible, but then somebody asked the question that what do you do when maybe they have a more demanding job outside of the home? So how do you then fairly split the load?
Sure. So I think fair is the right word, right? We're never going to get it to be equal. Unfortunately, I think in parenting and in life with our jobs, if we're both in a dual income home, and even if not, it's never going to be exactly the same, right? There are some weeks where my husband's working 18-hour days. Those weeks are going to fall more to me when it comes to actually taking care of the kids, right? He's not here. And so it'd be strange for me to get mad at him for not equally participating on those days. Having said that, there's things he can do in his absence, right? I think this is something we often don't talk about, which is when he's not home, he could still get emails from the school and respond to them and add things to the calendar and coordinate things. He can still order things online if we need groceries. He can coordinate a sitter if we need one in his absence, right? There's still work that can be done there. I think I hear from a lot of women that say, you know, my partner travels a lot and I'm often by myself and I'm exhausted and I'm burnt out, but he's not here. So what am I supposed to do? Well, what is your partner doing in their absence to make your life easier? Do they grocery shop before they leave? Do they do an extra load of laundry? Do they do anything to set you up for success? Because that's ultimately what we're looking for. So my husband works outside the home. I work from home. When he leaves in the morning, he leaves before we're awake. He takes the dog out, feeds the dog, fills every kid's water bottle, and makes sure the coffee's ready. So all of those things I don't think about in the morning. I don't have to worry about the dog, which is just like another thing on the to-do list. I don't have to take 10 minutes to fill water bottles. And that all sounds small and silly. And he also empties the dishwasher. But all of that added up off my plate when I'm with 4 kids by myself is really meaningful. And so I encourage couples who have that dynamic to really say, okay, you might not physically be present, but what can you do in your physical absence? Because there's typically a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good idea. But can I ask then, you asked your partner to do that? Did this come, straight away? He was like, oh, I'll do these things for you. Or was
Yeah.
this based on lots of work that you've done together to get there?
No, lots of work. When we sat down and made all that invisible labor visible, we also talked about what it was going to look like logistically. You know, we reallocated those tasks to whoever was going to handle them. And we talked about what our strengths were, what our weaknesses were, what we could do, couldn't do. We also talked about things like, what do you hate doing? What do I hate doing? Right? I don't mind doing the laundry. He hates the laundry. So I do most of the kids' laundry. The only laundry I don't do is his.
Yeah.
Like I do everyone else's laundry. And so we had those conversations and I said to him, hey, I don't think you understand that in the mornings, the little things actually do add up for me. And so if you could do this before you leave, it would make a world of a difference in my morning. And once he understood that, it wasn't really a question. He was like, yeah, of course, why wouldn't I help do that? But he didn't know that filling up water bottles for 5 or 10 minutes was going to actually make a difference in my morning. And it does. And so I think, there's this narrative of men should know better. Like, we know this, why don't they know this? And I agree. I wish men were more involved from the get-go, but we've been conditioned from a very young age as women to kind of pay attention to these things, do these things. But also as parents, I've been doing mornings by myself for 6-7 years now. I've tried a lot of things and failed at a lot of things, right? I've figured out what works, what doesn't work. I've tried getting the kids in the car different ways and said, like, actually, never mind. Like, we're going to do this differently. I think it's okay for us to have some grace for each other to learn and change and adapt, because it's not as simple as saying, you should know what I need. I wish it was. It just simply isn't.
Well, this is it, and it's true. Sometimes my husband will, the big pile of washing is there, and sometimes I'll be like, how can you not see that, I need some help with this? I'm obviously, the system isn't working, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he just doesn't really see it until I, said to him, I'm struggling with this, is there any way that you can help me? He said, well, I'll take it on, I'll do that. And we did a bit of trial and error, and actually it worked out. It wasn't the great thing for him to take on, because it needed a certain loads and number of days and all of those things, and but he now put certain bits away, and that was enough to take some of the pressure off me, right? But it's like you say, it's making those invisible things very visible. Even if they seem very visible, they're not always there, right? So
yeah.
Okay, so we talked about him going out of the house and things that you can do. When and if you ever go out of the house, do you set him up in a way that you'd like him to set you up? Do you leave things for the kids and all the clothes and everything ready to go? Because in the past, and I'm trying to work on this, when I've left the house for a few days, I've been like, right, this is what they're going to wear. I've done all the logistics of pickups and all of those things.
Yeah.
Can you get away from that, or is that something that you still do?
Oh, no, I don't do those things. Like, I don't help him with the day-to-day stuff, right? Hey, this is what to feed them, or this is what clothes they should wear, or this is when gymnastics is, because he knows all of that. Like, I don't have to do that. He knows how to do all of those things. If what we've created over time, and I will say, like, we've been working on this now for 3 years, and that it will always be changing, especially if you have kids, because as they get older, your life changes, right? I'm in a different phase now. I have big kids who have sports, and we're running around everywhere, and our lives just look very different than they did 3 years ago. But he is as much in the know as I am about how our household works and about where things go and how things are done. He knows that my son's laundry gets done on Mondays. Even if he's not the one doing it, he knows that's the day his laundry gets done. And so he'll say to me when I'm gone, like, oh, did his laundry get done, or like, should I do it? And so he knows what that schedule looks like. Things I will do though, if I'm going to be gone, like I'm going away for 3 days this month with some mom friends, and I am probably going to try to get an extra load of laundry in, or, whatever. I might order the groceries a day ahead of time so he has them, because I know how hard it is to parent 4 kids by yourself. Like, I know that. I don't want him to have it any harder than I do. But the thing is, he would do the same thing for me. And so I'm not doing anything because I don't trust him or don't think he knows it. It's more so, again, to that point of setting each other up for success. What does that look like? How can we support one another? What can we do in our absence to make our partner's life easier? I think that's what women are asking for from men. And it's also what I do for my partner. But I also don't lay out clothes. I'm like, you know how to dress your kids. I don't need to do that.
That's good to hear. Okay, but is that through training and working together on this, or is that through just him showing up and doing that anyway?
I wouldn't say I quote unquote trained my husband. I think we had conversations, and I think also a big part of the mental load thing is standards. Are my standards higher than your standards? And something you talk about over time as your partners tends to take on more work, right? Say my partner started to do the grocery shopping, and for the first few months I was like, dude, you're missing the mark. Like, you didn't get her yogurt, and you didn't get X, Y, and Z, and you bought the waffles with eggs in it, and our daughter's allergic to them. Like, you need to do these things and do them well. And we had to have conversations about what those standards look like and why they matter. But it's also no different than the conversations he has with me about other things, right? We have a pool, and so he'll talk to me about, hey, like, this is why the filter needs to be on at these times. And if you notice the water get below a certain level, you need to add water. I mean, we are both having these conversations about standards and expectations with one another. People to know that it shouldn't ever be like, okay, my standards are the end all be all. I'm not the boss of this house. But if I've been doing something for 4 years, like the laundry, for example, or the grocery shopping, then I know a thing or two about it. And so I'm going to tell you why I do it a certain way, or what I've tried, what I've tested, why it works. But I think the big important thing is that it's a conversation, and it's not me telling my partner, right? It's actually a conversation where he can say, like, I get it, why you've done it like that, but I actually don't know why you get groceries on Friday. Why don't we get them on Sunday so we have them for the week, right? Like, we can have that conversation and have some room for change, and be flexible with one another. But it takes time and a lot of work. I think you just constantly have to be talking about these things until you don't. Like, I think it takes a lot of work up front, and then one day you're just not talking about it anymore because you don't have to.
I guess, and that's the point where you've really shared the load, right? That is the bit that we're working toward, is that share, that you don't have to do all the thinking, that you can just, rather than explain everything, why you've done everything, that they are just doing those things. And
Right.
like you said, it will take time. And I think the way that our systems are, built up with, parental leave and things like that is a really hard thing for men particularly to sort of get that from the off-go, to share the load from the beginning, because we are often the ones there. So it's about finding that dynamic. I mean, I know in my own experience, we're 5 years in, and now the dynamic is shifting. I'm just working again, and it's a really hard thing because I've taken that load from the beginning, and he hasn't had to do the thinking around the children, and now he is, and it's taken time, but we're getting there slowly. Another question that we have had in is how to support your partner when they are emotionally immature. So this is coming from a coach who says that a lot of her clients will say this to her.
Yeah, so I'm not an expert necessarily on emotional maturity, but what I will say is I think, going back to that societal conditioning, I think we as women have been conditioned to be in touch with our emotions, to be emotionally mature from a very young age. We're held to different standards, and we are more willing to seek help, right? Like, we're more willing to work with a therapist and to read the self-help books. I mean, the self-help market is almost solely targeted to women, and self-help for men is like leadership books. We're not being fed the same messaging and the same priorities, right? Like, we don't really value emotional maturity in men in the way that we do with women. And women are also criticized for their emotions much more, right? She's so emotional, right? The whole thing. So I think first and foremost, it's very difficult because there's obviously, every person is different. Every relationship is different. If it's not toxic, I think as much as you can, that is when I suggest seeking kind of like expert help, seeking a therapist for your partner, or couples counseling, or whatever that might look like, because I think that is what I've done for myself when I feel ill-equipped. Like, when I became a parent, I was like, thank God I have a therapist, because this stuff is hard. Like, I need to talk through this and all the things that I feel with someone, because I don't know how to navigate this. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I do think that is a place where, when possible, which I know it's not always possible, seeking that help. Outside of that, though, I think encouraging our partners, if they're willing and able and in a good place to do it, to do that work themselves, read the books, right? Listen to the podcast, follow the Instagram account about how to gentle parent, whatever it might be, right? I think all of those things, that's work that we're all doing on ourselves, and we can't do it for our partners. That is a big part. You can't do that work for your partner. I tell people that all the time. Like, you can want them to change, you can want them to be different. And it's like, only they can change themselves. I can't do anything for them. You can support them and be there and lend a hand, but you can't change somebody or do that work for them.
No, you absolutely right, and it's their wanting to change. Like, I've seen it, my husband, he wants to help now, he wants to make that move. Before, he was like, oh, I haven't got capacity for this, I can't do that. But now, he's like, I want to be there. And I guess, like you say, that's when you can, suggest these things that they can do that we naturally do. So that's a really good point. Sometimes you do need the expert help. We have one final question, and it's, what is the one thing that mums can do today that will lessen their mental load? So, well, not just about talking to their partner, what is one thing that they can do themselves?
Yeah. I actually do think the exercise of making that mental load visible is really important. I don't think many of us do that. And then we feel burnt out and resentful and tired and frustrated with our kids, and we can't really pinpoint why. Like, we can't say why, and I think that's the number one thing that I hear from women who come to me is, oh my gosh, you said something that I've been feeling but could never articulate, right? I didn't know what it was, why I felt so burnt out by this particular thing. And now that you've said it, I'm like, oh, that's the thing. I think oftentimes that's because it is this invisible thing happening in the background. It's just kind of that never-ending to-do list floating behind you. And until you put it down on paper, you can't even see all the reasons you're feeling burnt out. And so to be able to say, like, oh, all you need is this special calendar or this planner, or you just need to outsource housework. For every single one of us, it's different. But I think first and foremost, to be able to actually change how you're handling the mental load and the impact it's having on you, you have to understand what's happening. You have to be able to see it and say, okay, actually, now that I'm looking at it, these are the things that are really burning me out. Like, this stuff, yes, I do it all the time. It's stressful, whatever, but like, it's fine. This, making dinner every single night, that's killing me. Like, that's killing me. I need a meal delivery kit. I just can't think of dinner again. Right? Like, for all of us, it's going to be different. But I think if you can take that time to write it down on paper, put it in a checklist, put it on a spreadsheet, whatever works for you, the notes app on your iPhone, and just for a week or two, just track the stuff that pops into your brain that you have to think about. Just see what comes up. I think doing that will help you start to understand it. But I would also say, secondarily to that, just having the language to talk about it, talking about it to your friends, talk about it to your therapist. It doesn't have to be your partner, right? Maybe you're not ready to have a conversation with your partner, but you want to start to kind of like offload these big feelings. Talk to someone about it. Talk to the lady who does your nails, right? Like, it doesn't matter. I think saying it out loud, using the words to describe what's happening, can make all of the difference, because until they're spoken, it's just this invisible thing that you're carrying that feels really heavy, that you have nobody to talk to about it. And I think once you do, once you say this to a friend, almost always they're like, oh yeah, yep, me too. And then there's that validation too, which I think is really important.
And that's why I love listening to you, because you articulate it so well. It's like, oh yeah, I'm also feeling exactly this way. I can't articulate it, but you're sharing and you're validating how I'm feeling. And for me, it was that moment when I learned about the invisible load. I was like, that is it. That is explaining exactly how I feel. All of this stuff that's going on that I don't really understand, and why I'm feeling resentful, frustration, all of those things. It was because of that, and I hadn't even noticed that invisible load myself. When I realized that was a thing, I was like, that is it, that is my problem. And like we say a lot, it's it's not our fault, right? It's this problem that we have where we're expected to take on so much now, and it's a systemic thing that we just have to realize it's not our fault. And I think sometimes when you realize that, sometimes the can be lifted a little bit too, right?
Totally.
So thank you, Paige. I think that is all we have got time for now. But for anybody who doesn't know you, and I cannot believe anybody who doesn't know you, but can you tell us where they can find you and what you have to offer?
Yeah. So you can find me at She's a Page Turner pretty much anywhere on social media. My website is she'sapageturner.com. I also have a Substack. I have a few resources if you are looking for help with the mental load or having that conversation. I have a free guide, which just kind of walks you through a lot of what we talked about here, but also links to different tools that you can use. And then I do also have an audio course about how to talk to your partner about the mental load, all of which are on my website.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much. I'll share all of that information in our show notes. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us live. All right. Thank you so much, Paige.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.